Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of Truth. So I'm going to read out 3 articles that I found quite easily on Googling about people struggling with autism in mainstream school. I just wanted to know whether it was just, me, or whether there is really an institutional problem with mainstream schools and autism, despite them claiming, most mainstreams have a SEND report claiming that they can deal with autism and disability and Asperger's and etc. But it doesn't seem to be, and I just wanted to see if other people were struggling, so I found these things. And this first one is actually from autism.org.uk, which is the National Autistic Society. This was published on the 9th of November 2021, their school report for 2021. They don't have one for 2022 yet. And it says, our new report has found that parents are facing exhausting and sometimes year-long battles to get support for their autistic children in school. The education system in England is simply not working for autistic children, and we're calling on the government to intervene with its upcoming review of special education needs and disabilities SEND system during spring. And it says about joining us for our petition. So the report is based on 4,000 parents, carers, autistic children and young people in summer 2021, and they found that a quarter, that's 26% of parents, waited over 3 years to receive support for their child. 3/4, that's 74%, said their child's school place did not fully meet their needs. This has almost doubled since 2017. Only 1 in 4 parents are satisfied with their special education needs support their child is receiving. Less than half of autistic children are happy in school, and 44% feel that their child's special education needs are not being met in general. 7 in 10 autistic children and young people said school would be better if teachers understood autism. And it goes on to detail lots more. Where is it here? Too many families are driven to expensive and stressful legal action to seek the support their child desperately needs, sometimes having to wait months or even years for anything to happen. Government figures show that 47% of appeals to the SEND tribunal were for an autistic child. Of SEND appeals being heard by a tribunal, 95% are resolved in favour of the parents. Our survey reinforced the picture. 2 in 5 parents who were refused an educational health care assessment said they appealed to the SEND tribunal, with the local authority conceding before the hearing in most cases. Without support, many autistic children are struggling or shut out of education altogether. Government figures show that autistic children are twice as likely to be excluded from school, either for a fixed period or permanently, as pupils with no special educational needs. Exclusion can have devastating lifelong impacts on an autistic child. Yeah, they tried to give Alina a red notice for her outburst. And I tried to point this out to the SENCO that, 1 minute, but it's like you're punishing her for having autism. This is just one of the things. So, 1 in 5 parents responding to our survey said that their child had been informally excluded at least once in the past 2 years. 7 in 10 autistic children say the biggest thing that would make schools better is having teachers understand autism. Teacher training is part of the government's recent autism strategy, and we're also calling for a reinstatement of autism in the initial teachers training ITT core content framework. It's unbelievable that they're not teaching teachers about autism when autism is, there's so many autistic people and children in schools, and it's only with the support. It's like you can't sort of close your eyes and pretend it doesn't exist or just put it into special schools. The mainstream schools, there's so many more of them. If you just educated teachers and gave them that necessary support and skills and etc., then that enables autistic children to be on a level field with neurotypical children. And why not? What's the problem? It's a bit like they know that there's with neurotypical it's easier, so let's just put all our attention onto them and not worry about neurodivergence, because they're never going to achieve. That's what it feels like is their sentiment behind all of these things, because it's the government that comes up with these schemes that the schools have to follow, like ehcp and etc. So let me get to the other article. This is in Metro. My son lost years of school. People need to know how bad it is. The autistic children being failed by the education system. This was on the 2nd of April 2022. Businesswoman Jay Brenwerton was travelling on a train from her home in East Sussex to London in January 2017 when she received a phone call that made her blood run cold. Her 7-year-old autistic son, Isaias, was missing after running away from his primary school. I felt fear and sickness, she recalls. Anyone could have grabbed him, someone could have pulled him inside their house, anything could have happened to him. Back in Jay's hometown of Bexhill-on-Sea, a major manhunt was underway. More than 100 police officers were drafted in from across the Sussex force to search for the frightened boy, with sniffer dogs probing the undergrowth as the police helicopters circled above. Several hours after the alarm had been raised, the policeman discovered a stressed and exhausted Isaias at home, curled up in a ball behind a wardrobe, much to Jay's relief. I sat on the floor and rocked and hugged him. He was non-verbal, traumatised and distressed, she remembers. But this wasn't the first time Isaias had run home from school, or the second, or even the third time. According to Jay, this was the 82nd time in 15 months that he'd bolted, prompted by his anxiety spiralling out of control. How is it possible that most of the primary schools these days have gates and all sorts of systems and etc.? I mean, that was always my worry with Alina. That was one of the main things that I told them, that you need to make sure you keep an eye on her because she's very resourceful. She'll find the way out, so you've got to make sure you keep an eye on her. But 82 times! Even though she knew he was always heading for home, it didn't make it easier. I felt terrified, she admits. I knew his capability of running without stopping or thinking about potential dangers, such as traffic. For a long time, Jay had known that a mainstream school wasn't the right place for her son. By the time he'd made this latest escape, she'd already spent 3 years battling the local education authority, the LEA, for an education health care plan, EHCP, that would see Isaias move to a special school, one that could cater for his educational and social needs. So why did it take 3 years for them to do this? If their main concern is children, why is it that it would take this time? Following his latest police search, Isaiah's school agreed that they weren't the best place for him and asked the family to remove the child. Shockingly, remove the child from education. Shockingly, it would take then another 3 years out of any sort of formal education before the family would find a school that was right for Isaiah. Jay says that a combination of money and red tape and lack of understanding were the root cause of the hold-up, and it was a delay that ultimately cost the boy 7 years of learning. In England, local authorities give primary schools in the region of £4,000 per pupil. The Department for Education says that for children who need additional help with special needs, SEN, schools can have 6,000. 2,000 more, that's probably not enough, is it? Well, that's the problem, isn't it? But if a child with SEN requires extra support costing 10,000 or more, an EHCP is required, so it can help identify and support a child's educational, health and social needs. For the academic year 2021, 325,600 pupils in England had an EHCP, up more than 30,000 from the previous year. But obtaining an EHCP is often easier said than done. In January 2021, according to support group Special Needs Jungle, 5,600 children and young people with EHCPs were listed as awaiting provision, with some waiting months, even years, to get education that they are entitled to. As a result, many autistic children like Isaiah are falling through the cracks and missing out on vital schooling, potentially storing up more problems for the future. Children with autism can present differently because it affects children and young people in a range of ways, explains Dr. Michelle C. McDowell, an educational and child psychologist. Those with ASD are more likely to develop mental health problems, so it's very important that they are provided with strategies and support to manage areas of difficulty. In the worst scenario, difficulties in assessing appropriate support for children with ASD can lead to both short and long-term problems, such as low educational achievement, poor self-concept, ongoing social communication difficulties, and a higher risk of mental health difficulties. Isaiah was diagnosed with atypical autism and sensory processing disorder, a condition that affects how the brain processes sensory information at 17 months. He was later diagnosed with pathological demand avoidance syndrome, meaning he goes to extreme lengths to avoid everyday demands and experiences high levels of anxiety, and oppositional defiance disorder, which causes Isaiah to become aggressive and even violent towards his parents and siblings. And then it goes on. I don't know if there's any more. It's just amazing, isn't it? They could take 3 years. I'll put the links for these. And let's go to the last one now from Hertz Live. Cuffley's mum losing hope after autistic daughter left without secondary school for 3 years. This was published in the 24th of August 2022. A mother has said she is now looking to move out of Hertfordshire after losing hope that her autistic daughter will be offered appropriate full-time education. Alana Cazzaroni, 13, from Cuffley, has been out of school for the past 3 years after being diagnosed with autism. It was determined after the COVID pandemic Alana would attend a secondary school with SEND, Special Educational Needs and Disability, provisions. However, years later she is still without a place. The young girl has found her mental and physical health declining while her mother has tried to take it upon herself to tackle the issue. Maria Cazzaroni, 43, has said she has been battling with the authorities to secure her daughter's future while ensuring she gets the support she needs. The family struggles have meant Miriam had to quit her job as a makeup artist so she could stay home to care for Alana. Mariam feels the arduous admission process will never end and she sees no hope for children with autism and other disabilities in Hertfordshire. She says that children like Alana are just a number and they don't exist in the eyes of the authorities, while parents are pushed to the side. Miriam said, "From my own research, I believe there are over 2,000 children in Hertfordshire who need special treatment, the same as my daughter. I think that children like my daughter who are with disabilities are ghosted. They don't exist." Where's the rest? Sorry, wait a minute. Sorry, they came up with some other information, so I'm trying to get to where I was. Okay. Miriam, that's where we're at. Okay, go forward for this bit. She added, "I have been handling this all on my own for the past 3 years. I was a qualified makeup artist. I was working up to 2019. I had to quit to take care of my daughter." Alana was in mainstream school until year 6, but when the pandemic hit, her school closed. It was decided when she went to the secondary school, she would be best placed in the school with SEND provisions. I thought all schools had SEND provisions, no? Miriam continued, "Alana was doing great in a mainstream school, but once the children started growing up, they started bullying. It had been decided that it should be better if she goes to a SEND school." I mean, they're talking about special needs school, a special school. I mean, the minus of what was that, if your child is autistic, you as a parent can't decide to which school your child should go. Well, that's not true, actually. I thought they did. Due to Alana's autism, she has an educational care health plan, because when you do the HCP, they ask you which school, but of course they can overrule that, so maybe that's what she's talking about, which means the local authority, Hertfordshire County Council, HCC, ultimately has the final say, yes, okay, on what secondary school she attends. However, 3 years after leaving primary school, she has still not joined a school. Miriam explained 2020 came and there was still no school. Back in 2018 they tried to offer a school for badly behaved children. Although Alana is autistic, she's an elective mute and really shy. I wasn't thinking it was a good idea. So they tried to give her a badly behaved school. Hey. Miriam was encouraged to visit the school, but once she stepped inside, she's turned the offer down. The authorities tried to convince her that the option would have been only temporary. Ever since they have consulted 17 other schools, which have allegedly not had space or can't meet Alana's needs. I went to the school and there were children beating each other up, biting each other's ears, fighting with the headmaster. Miriam claimed, "I walked straight back out. I said, 'You want me to put a quiet, shy child in here who doesn't even speak or can't stand up for herself?'" Let's just go on a bit forward. To improve Alana's situation, Miriam was told that it would be better if they tweak her EHCP so that she had more chance to find a new school. However, Miriam said this did not help them find a school. She has now tried to take matters into her own hand, but is unfortunately proven unsuccessful. She said, I've had 37 messages and emails I've sent. Not one has been responded to a reply. My messages to the head of the SEND department, they got bounced back. I recently got in touch with my MP who didn't come back to me for a long time, but eventually one of his assistants got back to me and said, we've been in touch with the HCC. They said they do their best they can, and that's how it was left. While MPs have no power in dealing with such matters, Sir Charles Walker's team contacted the Director of Child Services at Hertfordshire County and asked them to look into Alana's case. Miriam said there are too many discrepancies in the lies told by the council in this correspondence. Just because I refuse the school with troubled children does not mean they can keep using it as an excuse to keep my daughter away from the rights of an education and, more importantly, having interaction with the outside world, experiencing with normal young people at her age do. So you can see that this is happening all over the place in the 21st century in the UK. It's shameful. All these educational ministers and etc. who've come and gone, all these school people with this, and still it hasn't been sorted out. Take care, take it easy. God bless and peace.